Thanks for checking out the Locked On NFL Podcast YouTube page. Great daily content coming your way. Make sure you're subscribed. Like this video. We appreciate it. Well, Super Wildcard Weekend kicked off with a pretty dramatic game that had two teams seeking their first playoff wins for the first time in a long time. And the Cincinnati Bengals were able to capture that victory. And it took, son of a bitch. Here we go. Thanks for checking out the Locked On NFL Podcast YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe for great daily content. Like this video, we'd appreciate it. So, Super Wildcard Weekend kicked off with a pair of teams seeking their first playoff victories far too long. The Cincinnati Bengals and Las Vegas Raiders, and it was the Bengals advancing to the divisional round, their first playoff win in 3 decades. Jermaine Pratt picked off Derek Carr with 12 seconds remaining on the goal line to seal the deal for Cincinnati's 26-19 win over the Raiders from Paul Brown Stadium. The Bengals scored 20 points in the first half. The final score of the half for the Bengals was a controversial one. It was a call that there was an errant whistle as Joe Burrow threw a TD pass to Tyler Boyd. That call stood, and the Bengals had the lead 26 going into the locker room. And the 7 points ended up being the difference in this contest. As for Joe Burrow, 244 yards passing. He threw for 2 TDs in the win. Cincinnati's first postseason victory since January of 1991. Where were you? As for Vegas, Derek Carr, 310 yards in the air in the loss with a touchdown in that game-sealing interception. The Raiders haven't won their playoff game since 2003. It was 31 years in the making, or at least 31 years since their last playoff victory. The Cincinnati Bengals went wire to wire over the Las Vegas Raiders. Jake Liscow, of course, Locked On Bengals, him and his co-host, James Rapien, they were breaking it down, recapping the big victory. You know, Jake, when I look at this, the Carson Palmer, Chad Johnson era was shut out. The Andy Dalton, AJ Green era was shut out. How was the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase era able to kind of figure it out and get it done in their first playoff appearance together?
I think that the Carson Palmer, Chad Johnson era was robbed a little bit that first time around in 2005 in particular. But Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase just don't shy down from the moment. This team, unlike the Marvin Lewis era teams, doesn't have primetime issues, doesn't have spotlight issues. And I don't know if that's a fair criticism or not of that Marvin Lewis regime in Cincinnati, but Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are ready for the moment and are just special players too. And I think their confidence showed up in a big way on Saturday.
It was a gutsy defensive effort from Cincy. And if you look at this game as a whole, it wasn't their best game. You and James were talking about that on the recap podcast. And you have to appreciate that the young quarterback, Joe Burrow, in his post-game comments, he wasn't really exactly, pumped about the performance. Of course, survive and advance, but you have to appreciate that they know they didn't play well. Is it encouraging that the team has got this business-like mentality going forward?
I think absolutely. For the fans of the Cincinnati Bengals, it's a massive moment, 31 years in the making. For the players on the Cincinnati Bengals, most of them weren't alive the last time the Bengals won a playoff game, weren't on the team for the playoff drought under Marvin Lewis, were kids when Marvin Lewis had most of those playoff appearances, and some of them still are kids, are in their early 20s. But I think that for the players, there is this expectation, there is this culture, and CJ Uzama has said it in the post game locker room celebrations. The standard for this team is the Super Bowl. And so while for fans there might be a feeling of playing with house money, this team has very high expectations for itself.
If they advance to the next round, to the AFC Championship game, we're going to see Zach Taylor back in the bar handing out game balls to the city of Cincinnati.
Well, they're going to be on the road, I think, no matter what at this point. So I don't know if we'll see Zach Taylor doing that again right away. But I thought that was a really cool moment. Went out to the Mount Lookout Tavern, which he said he's driven by after work for, when he's driving home for the last 3 years. And he's had this idea of rewarding the city for their dedication. And it shows a great awareness of what fans of the team have gone through, and I think that's a pretty cool thing. I don't think you see that very much in professional sports. And I don't know if we'll see it every week, because at some point that's the standard and that's what you hold yourself to. But for the first one, it was a huge moment for the city, and I thought that was really special.
The Bengals' long playoff win drought, it ends 31 years, and the Raiders continues, and it can now buy a pack of cigarettes if it wants to. 18 years for the silver and black. But despite losing, the Raiders, they faced a lot of adversity, and they answered pretty well, making the playoffs despite having to move off of John Gruden in 2021. Your boy Q, of course, Locked On NFL host, and your Locked On Raiders host joins us here. Q, Derek Carr, he throws the pick, on the 9-yard line. It's the game-sealing pick, heartbreaking. How was Cincy able to kind of keep the Raiders chasing all game long?
That's a great question, but that was exactly what they did. They did have them chase all game long. The Raiders just weren't very good executing in the red zone, and that's something that they've really struggled with all season long. And I asked that question, like I say, that's a good question because that's the question we've been asking all year. As far as the media goes, like how do you get into the end zone? How do you convert 7 instead of 3? And
Right.
they just don't have the answer for it. And they just as much as they can move the ball between the 20s, man, once you get into that red zone, once it's money time, man, they're just not able to cash in. And there's a reason why Daniel Carlson, their field goal kicker, got a 4-year extension this season because he's been so good. He's been so stinking good, but he's been used more than they really wanted to use him.
Yeah, 3 or less is a lock for the Raiders, but any more than that, it unfortunately didn't break their way this time. But they continue to fight, and they've kind of taken on, the spirit of their interim head coach, Rick Bisaccia. Has he made the case to continue on as the Raiders head coach?
I think he's made the case to get a good interview, a legit interview, and have a good conversation about it, and maybe have him roll out a game plan of what he would do with the whole offseason to himself and with the whole training camp going into it, knowing he's the guy. I think the conversation could be there, but I think he has to show a whole lot to Mark Davis and anyone else to show why he would be that guy. I think that the Raiders go out there and they try to get a home run hire. If they can get that guy, they bring him in. If they can't, then maybe they roll it back one more year. But I would be very I don't know. I would really investigate every option before I just jump to say Rich Bisaccia is going to be the guy.
Would you say success for 2021 with the silver and black?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just with all the adversity that they had to deal with, nobody, including myself, thought that they'd even be a playoff team after everything they went through. I thought, oh, it's a wrap, man. They're going to play the rest of their season out, and they're just going to evaluate some talent, figure out what they're going to do, move forward, and probably blow the whole thing up. But instead, they fought and they got to 10 wins and a first playoff berth since 2016, the first one of Derek Carr's career. So yeah, I mean, I would say it's a success, but it's not the end goal, So obviously they wanted to keep on playing. They want to be talking about next weekend. They're not. The Bengals are moving on, and so the Raiders have some questions to answer, and they need to continue to build that team.